Okay, today we're going to see if we can get this tire to seal. It's got a slow leak. It leaks down about after 2 or 3 hours. We're going to go ahead and put some slime in there. So the question comes up, do you want to put a tube in there or slime? And there's some advantages and disadvantages of both. The slime is nice, it's convenient, it handles pretty much any tire size if you have enough of it. The other thing is it claims it can seal up a hole as big as 1/4 inch, which is actually pretty surprising. I've never seen one that big, but if it is, that's hats off to slime. Of course, a tube offers some advantages because you don't have the mess inside later on down the road. The disadvantages, you have to have that size of tube handy when you have a leak, and sometimes you don't, so you might have to wait for that. The other thing, as a disadvantage for tubes, I found out in some cases it holds moisture between itself and the rim and can cause the rims to rust out, whereas the slime, you're not going to have that trouble. And the other thing is tubes can tend to leak over time, whereas the slime will continue to patch holes in operation. So one of the first things we need to do is get this jacked up off the ground. We have all our tools here. We need a tool for removing the valve stem, and the smaller bottles of slime, we have one of the gallon jugs, but the smaller ones actually come with the tool built into the cap, which is kind of nice to remove the valve. But if you don't have that, you'll have to have a tool you'll have to get from somewhere else and keep it handy. We have a air source. We're kind of away from any compressed air, so we just brought a compressed air tank that we filled up in the garage to 100 pounds. That should be enough to get us going. We got our aluminum jack to jack it up, of course our slime. So we should have everything we need. So go ahead and bring the jack over here and we'll get this jacked up. So slide that underneath the reservoir there. And we're not lifting a lot of weight here, so there's really no concerns on punching through anything. And we also brought a strap, which is going to aid us into getting the wheel or the tire bead seated, because most of the time when these tires go flat, they open up the seal on the bead, and you need something to get that started back on there. You can set that down because we won't need that for a while. So next step you want to do is remove the valve itself. Take off your valve cap. Use your tool to get in there and get a hold of the slots on the valve, and then loosen that up. You might be able to put slime in through the valve, but I doubt it. If you can, it's going to take a way longer amount of time. So it's pretty critical you remove this valve, and that's what it looks like. That's actually what does all your holding of your air inside the tire and the valve stem. Now we have that out, we can start putting some slime in. I want to bring that slime over here. In this case, we'll probably want to do 5 or 6 pumps at least. I believe there's a chart on here that tells you how much you need. Looks like about 8 pumps for most smaller stuff, tractors, motorcycles, things like that, which I would consider this to be about the same size as that. Make sure you have the hose seated onto the valve cap stem as good as you can, and then just start pumping it in. So we'll do 8 pumps. Okay, so we got about 8 pumps in there. And one thing you want to do is, because this is supposed to be secured back together when you're done, threaded back together so the handle isn't sticking up and you don't accidentally pump some. You'll want to put that last pump in there and then tighten the handle up. Alright, now we can put our valve stem back in with our tool. Okay, that's tight. And then the other thing you want to do, and you can either do this now or later, you want to roll the tire around a little bit to distribute that slime inside. We don't know where the leak is, if it's on the tire bead or if it's on in the tread area or even the sidewall. So we want to try and distribute that slime as good as we can. I think the directions tell you to pull the vehicle around slowly until that distributes completely. But this is another fairly quick way. It's a little chilly out, so that slime is going to be a little more vicious. It's not going to flow quite as well, so we're probably going a little bit too fast. But at this point, the tire will hold air based on last time we used it, so I'm not too worried about it. But you'll want to at least give it a chance to move around a little bit and seal that up. Now, at this point, we might be lucky enough when the beads might be sealing, we might not need to try and reseal them. I'm going to take a look here. It looks like we have a little opening here that's not going to hold air. And in order to help us with that, we put a strap around it. Now you have to be careful with these straps, because what happens is as soon as you start putting air in, those beads seal, you're going to get some really high stresses built up in these straps, so you don't want to use those real thin ones. Well, let's just put it this way. You want to use the heaviest one you have, or at least something that's capable of holding a couple thousand pounds, hopefully. And then you'll want to wrap this around here and hook it back onto itself, and then start to put a little bit of tension in it. And sometimes you might need two people to get this strap. You want to hold this strap. Help me hold the strap and get it around there. We got to make sure we stay on the circumference of the wheel. And make sure you position it so your handle's in a place where you can use it. And then what you want to do is just tighten it up enough to where you close up any gaps between the tire and the rim. By squeezing this outer circumference here, we're forcing the beads against the wheel. And we'll give that a try. We don't want to over tighten this. Like I said, as soon as you put pressure on there, that strap is going to be under a tremendous amount of tension, and it's a little bit dangerous. So you want to put just enough in there to start it to seal. And as soon as you hear the air go in the tire and it starts to seal, it will start backing off this ratchet to minimize the chances of that breaking. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of air in it. There's a valve on the side, Simon, that red handle, plastic handle. You got to open that counterclockwise. Keep turning it until it stops. Okay, you heard the hose pressurize. Now we'll put a little bit in here, and hopefully so at that point we have our bead sealing. And now what I like to do is just take the ratchet, go to the very end, and I'm just going to step this down a little bit at a time. And then as I do, I'll put a little more air in it to make sure I don't lose that seal on the bead. And generally I just move it one one notch, free it up, just manually, if I can. We might need to let this down, but let me see here. Yeah, just kind of manually release it and then let it go a couple notches. And then you're still holding a little bit of pressure on it, just so that the bead stays sealed up against the wheel. We're good there. And at this point, we can release the strap. You can see it was under a little bit of tension, but very little, and that's really where you want to be. I've seen it happen before where people put too much air and you go to release it and it's lucky it didn't break up into that point. And then go ahead and release it. You can take that off, and at that point, you have your seal, and then we'll go ahead and put a little more air in. That'll be good for what we're doing. And then the next step is just to let that slime distribute around on the inside again. And you may find that you have to put some more in a couple hours. Keep your eye on it, but eventually that slime will get into all the areas, and it tends to move towards where you have a leak, and that could take a little bit of time. So have some patience with it. If it doesn't seal immediately, it may require another filling. We should be good to go. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys learned something, and we'll get together on the next video.